Angela Kirkian, and here today on this webinar, I am so excited. We have something very fun planned for you today. Before we get started, I want to thank Dell Technologies for sponsoring this webinar. Dell has brought us some amazing educational segments, and this one is going to be fantastic. We're really, really excited to be interviewing Mark today. Mark is a celebrity and advertising photographer out of New York. You've seen his work everywhere. There's a list of magazines. I can tell you Esquire, Men's Health, Vibe, Spin, Fortune, Billboard, Parade, and others. And of course, his list of celebrity clientele is really quite long. I encourage you to visit his website, markmannphoto.com.
And Mark Mann Photo as well.
markmannphoto.com.
Mike Mann is not quite as good as me, but still worth a visit.
I appreciate you so much. And he does have a new book coming out, The Life of Man, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on too. So again, thank you to Dell, and Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I won't call you Mike again.
No, Mike is good. Michael Mann is the famous film director. So I get it around Michael Mann and Mark Mann.
So that is like my biggest fear, is that I'm going to introduce somebody by the wrong name. Like that is my ultimate, and it's, you know, I might as well do it in front of a really large audience.
Well, you know, it's talking about your biggest fears. Just super quick. You know, I often get photo anxiety dreams. And I was shooting yesterday, and the night before I went to bed, I had this classic photo anxiety dream. It was a new one, but it was so weird. So I went somewhere to do a photo shoot, and my wife and kid were with me, and I messed it up so badly that the mafia were chasing me to the airport. And we got it was like a Michael Mann movie. We get to the airport, right, and I said to my wife, grab the bag, I'll grab the bags, you run and get in the terminal, they're chasing us. And my wife and son run in the terminal, and I you know, my dream, I feel a big arm coming around my neck, and you know, I've obviously been watching too many spy things, and I feel like I'm being kidnapped, and I woke up going, Kenna! It's just like every night before I have anything to shoot, I have one of these weird anxiety dreams. Anyway,
I love to hear that someone at your level still has those nightmares. That's so encouraging.
I mean, some of them are they're funny sometimes. I mean, they're never funny at the time, but that one, you know, I have one that repeats where my camera's turned to jelly. So somebody hands me mine. This is jelly. Do you have any other cameras with us? It's just like, no, man, they're all jelly. But I usually don't dream, but when I dream, it's usually photo shoot anxiety dreams. Crazy.
Anybody else? Does anybody else out there have those kind of dreams? I used to, when I was photographing weddings, I would have those nightmares.
Oh, yeah,
you know, that I forgot to pack film, or that I, you know, like I missed like the ceremony because I had to go do something else. I don't know, like like what?
Did you ever forget film?
I didn't.
I can tell you a good forgetting film story if we get enough time.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead and tell us your forgetting film story.
Really?
It makes us feel better to know that, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, who you're photographing or what level you're at, that you can make mistakes.
Make mistakes, man. So we were doing a really great job. It was a cover for Men's Health magazine with Usher, and we were shooting in Malibu in this rented beach house, and film days. But I never used to really like to travel with film, because the problem with, you know, shooting 120 film and having to put it through the X-ray machines twice, once when it went out there and once when it was coming back, and you know, yeah, however good the people that were doing it were, it's still, you know, it wasn't worth the effort. So if I was going somewhere like LA, then I would, you know, all the rental places sold film, so you just bought it with your equipment rental. So we had a super early start. I said to my assistant, who was wonderful, I said, you checked the EQ, we're all good, we got everything. She goes, yep, I went down the list. I said, cool. So we get out to Malibu, and Usher gets out to Malibu, and we're setting up lights and we're setting up stuff. I said, okay, great, time for a couple of Polaroids. And my assistant looks at me and goes, we don't have film or Polaroid. So what? I said, was it on the list? She goes, all right. Let's keep it calm. What are we gonna do? So basically, he got ready super early. You know, we thought we'd about another half an hour, but he came out early. In the meantime, I called the rental place. They said it was going to be like 45 minutes to get somebody from LA to Malibu with the film. We said, great, go, rush. And he comes out early, and I was working with a stylist who was a friend of mine, and I took her aside and I just said, just go with me, please, just go with me here. And he comes out and he stands on the set and he's like starting, and I lift up my camera. I'm gonna take a, you know what? And I said to the stylist, I don't like these pants. They really, really don't work. Can we change the pants? And she's like, yeah. I said, great. I said to her, half an hour to change the pants, please. So off she went. Meanwhile, my assistant was feeling so guilty and bad that she saw there was a photo shoot going on next door. It was Russian Vogue. And she went over and she begged the photographer if she could borrow a pack of Polaroid that we would get back to them in a few minutes when ours arrived. He was very reluctant, but I don't know how she persuaded him anyway. So she got Polaroid, and he comes back out, and I shoot like 6 or 8 Polaroids, and we lay them all out, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's great, that's great." I said, "Great, okay, should we do one more?" You know, just trying to stall. And by this point, I can see the photo director, who I've worked with many, many times, looking at me like, "What are you doing, Mark? What's going on?" And then, you know,
This is not your usual.
you got it. So we could see the van. We saw the van pulling up outside, and van came, and my assistant, whose name I keep going to say, but I'm not going to embarrass her like that. I could see her running back towards me with the film. I said, okay, let's shoot some film. Got the film and the cameras, off we went. Nobody was any wiser.
That
But
is
yeah.
great. Oh my God. It's good to know people. It's good to have help and support, you know, having your
Yeah. Because because the other thing, and this is, you know, this is really, really important. And I think it's important through life. Certainly in photography, that whenever you show fear or irritation, or for me, I cannot talk about me, then people back off a bit. And if you show fear, they won't trust you. So for me, it's very, very important to outwardly be super confident about what I'm doing, even though sometimes I have no idea what I'm doing, like the seminar. So, in translating that to like the modern era of photography, when, you know, you got your big monitor set up and everybody for 10 miles can see your screen, so there's no privacy, you know, and you take your first picture of somebody and it's, you know, out of focus, the light's wrong, the exposure's wrong, the composition's crap, and everyone's standing there looking at it. And I just go, wow, that's amazing. You look so great. Doesn't he look great? Isn't this? I know the light's a little bit off, but wow, this is fantastic. And everybody goes, okay. And then you carry on to shoot. But if you do the, oh my God thing, then nobody's going to trust you again. So faking
Sure.
that sense of that what you're doing is actually any good is super important skill to learn.
I love it. I love our conversation. I have to tell those of you who are joining us, my very first conversation with Mark, the thing that I realized immediately was, one, I already knew how talented he was, but two, just how humble he is, and how he approaches this craft in a very unique way. And it's refreshing, and it's very encouraging and very inspiring. So we're going to get a glimpse of that, I'm sure.
Is it unique? I mean, I don't really hang with so many photographers, so is it
Yeah,
unique?
humility. I think humility, yes, maybe, yes. I'm going to say yes.
Hmm.
I'm going to
I
say
mean,
yes for the level of where you are and the kind, the clientele that you have and what you've built. Yeah, yeah, I think so. I
the
think so.
humility, I think, comes a lot from my wife, who just shuts me down in about 2 seconds on anything. I go, look at this, and she'll go, eh. And I'm like,
It's okay. You got to have people like that around you, don't you?
But yeah, no,
So,
definitely. But talking about the humility, like for instance, you guys approached me, or with Dell, approached me to do this, and my first, and it's a genuine thought, is why? You know, I, I, as a freelancer, you, I've been freelance for, I don't know, 25 years in New York, and you never look behind you because you're always wondering how you're not going to be driving Uber or delivering food or looking for a new job the next week when you've got nothing lined up. So you never get this opportunity to look behind and tap yourself on the shoulder and say, "Hey,
yeah.
well, you've done this." I mean, I never feel like that. I always feel, "What's next? What can I do next? How am I going to feed my family in 10 years?" So I don't know if it's humility or just fear, but it's about always trying to maintain and do better and be better, um, and just fear of everything being taken away because Instagram.
Because Instagram. Well, I don't think you have anything to worry about. What I'd love to do though is
Yeah.
instead of having me up here, I would love for them to see your work because it is
Okay.
so inspiring. So I'm going to turn me off.
All right.
Um,
So I turn
and
on work.
yeah, if you can maybe share your
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I wanted to just chat about, I mean, you have so many amazing stories. In our first conversation, we talked about a few of them and I thought, oh my gosh, what a fun thing to look at these images and then to hear the stories behind them. And I mean, I just want to look at all of these. Where are we going to
Yeah.
start? Oh, you got to start with Al. I love that. What was he like to work with?
You know, it's it's so weird when you have such hero worship for a human being, and all of a sudden he's standing in front of you. You're like, it's Al Pacino. So, and I got this great thing. It's my inner dialogue and my outer dialogue, and often if I'm lucky, I manage to keep my inner dialogue in and my outer dialogue out. But sometimes they get confused and I say really ridiculous things. But with Al Pacino, it's like, oh my God, it's Al Pacino. Oh my God, it's Al Pacino. And my outer dialogue is, oh, so nice to meet you, Mr. Pacino. How's your day been? Everything good? Oh my God, it's Al Pacino. So this kind of this happens a lot to me, that my mom describes it. She says, you're like a very graceful swan in the water. You just seem to cruise through all these situations, but I know that under the water your little feet or your little paddles are going. So I think that sums it up. But for
You're
instance,
having to work really quickly with these when you meet them. I mean, you generally don't have a lot of time, or do you?
it depends, but on talking about that is, I know this is going to sound really dickish, but I don't necessarily want a lot of time.
Mm.
One of the reasons for that is that after about 5 minutes, my shtick gets boring and I lose them. So I know I'm really good for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then I run out of things to say. And the dancing, is it dancing monkey? Kind of like, oh. So and also one of the things, or something I often failed with, was plan Bs. I'm not great at plan Bs. I really like my plan As to work. So I know Al Pacino's coming in. I know what kind of photograph I want. I mean, I'm not talking about that going down to the detail of, but I wanted a black and white, and I wanted an intense shot with, him actually looking not at the camera, but through the camera. So, through experience, I have, little tips and tricks that help me. And there's all a lot to do with conversation and the questions you ask and how you present yourself. And for this shot, I said, Mr. Pacino, do you have game? Oh, he said, call me Al. I was like, okay, Al, Mr. Al. Call me Al. I was like, oh, okay. Hey, Mr. Pacino, do you have a great game face? I bet you've got a great 5,000 yard stare. And then I got a big smile. I said, no, but real, do you have one? Do you have one? He said, I don't know. I don't know if that. I said, come on, just try for me. And he put his head down. He just looked up, and he just looked right through the camera, and it was piercing. And I caught a couple of images like that. And that's what I wanted. I did get some other nice images of him. I don't know. That's him talking to his assistant or somebody offset. I didn't make that happen. No, I've got no other pictures on the folder. So that was really special. And super coincidentally, Robert Duvall was the person I was photographing before, not for any related. It was just coincidence. I was doing a day of different people. I was up at the Toronto Film Festival, and I was desperate to keep Robert Duvall there, so I could see Al Pacino and Robert Duvall in the same room. But alas, I was using all the techniques of stay, have some coffee, can we bring something to eat?
That's great.
We were having a great conversation because he made a movie. I've never heard of this movie, and I should really do some research about soccer, or football as we call it in Scotland, or something to do with Scotland and football. I didn't quite understand it, but I was talking to him about Glasgow and Scotland and football, and he got really into it. We were talking, and I can see his people going, Robert, we got to roll, and I just keep asking questions because I know I'm like 2 minutes away from Pacino coming in, and I didn't particularly want to photograph it. I just wanted to see these two men in the same room, but unfortunately, it didn't happen, and he left. And then Pacino comes in. I said, "Hey, Mr. Pacino, you just missed Robert Duvall." And then he does. I can't do a Pacino impersonation because me, you're telling me that Robert Duvall was in this room 2 minutes ago, and it was. So, stuff like that happens a lot.
That's so fantastic. So let me ask you this question. I'm just curious. I'm thinking our audience probably is as well. Like, who hires you to do these? How are you engaged to do these?
Many different ways. Some of them come from, let's say that a talent or a celebrity doesn't want to do press for the next year, but they want imagery for the next year.
Mm.
So somebody asks them for something like, yeah, here's an exclusive. So maybe I'll create 8 or 10 exclusives for, a client, hand them over the rights, and then that person doesn't have to do any other photo shoots for the next year. It's moving a lot towards that because people don't want to have, well, COVID's a whole other thing, but before it's just as the talent and the publicist and the agents become more powerful than the dwindling print magazines, then the print magazines have very little power. Back in the day, Esquire could say, no, if you want to be an Esquire, we're shooting it. You don't have any control over it. We're going to do what we're going to do. And the talent would be so desperate to be in Esquire that was fine. That's the way it was. But now, if you've got 4 million, 5 million, 2 million Instagram followers, you don't really care if you're an Esquire magazine.
Mm.
So in a big power shift like that, so that happens, and then obviously hired by magazines, online as well, hired by advertising. Sometimes the celebrities doing advertising. I always, push for a little time to do a portrait and negotiate for that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it. They're all commissions. I never just, I actually did recently, but I've never written to somebody and say, hey, can I take your picture, for my collection? So they're all commissions. Sometimes paid, I would say sometimes not paid, but it's always somebody asking me. 99% is somebody asking me to take their photo.
And you get hired, so you're hired either from a publicist or from the people directly. And do you have an agent? Do you have someone that represents you, or do they contact you directly?
I do. Her name is Randy Cole, and she's New York, and she's from New York, and she's a New York agent, and she's great. And she handles mostly commercial work, advertising pharmaceutical stuff that I do that nobody ever sees, usually because the lawyers kill it before it's before it's allowed out there. And if you have shot it, you're not allowed to show it. But that's really the way that I can afford to do so much of the editorial stuff that I love, or to put the effort into the portraits when there's no money. So that pays my way. If somebody comes, if we had a request from Saudi Arabia, and no, it wasn't Saudi, Dubai Esquire last year to do a cover, actually two covers we did for them. And they reached out to Randy, and it's editorial, but Randy dealt with it. So, but I get a lot of people coming to me directly, or, what's just blows my mind is when, somebody of note, or a CEO, or somebody says, oh, I've seen your work, and you've worked with this person, he's a friend of mine. And I just, word of mouth can play a big part as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm looking just at your images, and I feel like you've touched on every genre. I mean, every type of actor, um,
Yeah,
every age group.
yeah, I see. This particular folder is kind of interesting because, what I've been promising I would do. I'm promising myself, nobody else, because I don't think anybody else would be interested. But I've been promising myself to do a 25 years in New York book. Um, I started promising myself at 20, and now we're at 25. And COVID was a really good excuse to really make some headway in that. So I was always kind of looking for a hook. It's just I didn't want to I didn't want to just hear the images, let's make a book. So I went back. First of all, my film archive is somewhere else that I couldn't get to immediately. But I went back to the beginning of my digital archive, and I genuinely can't remember how many years, but maybe 12 or 13, something like that.
Yeah.
And started looking through shoots that I hadn't looked at for 10 or 12 years. And what was amazing, a couple of things that were really amazing. One was how little I knew what I was doing. What was I thinking? Can't believe I did that. Can't believe I wasted that opportunity. And another one was, when I presented the shots to, you do a shoot and you present the pictures to whoever hired you. What I would choose to present is so different than what appealed to me now. Style change, maybe learning how to focus better. So what I decided to do was to go back and choose images. I'm trying to find some older ones here. God, let me see if I can find any older ones. So, to choose images that I'd never really looked at before. I think there's one. Oh yeah, here's a good example. Can you remember her name? It's gone out of my head.
I don't know her name. Does anybody in our audience know?
Oh, what's her name? She was on Parks and Rec. I told you this was. Did I not say I'm going to forget everybody's names?
We're having a name issue today.
Michael always forgets names. Parks and Rec. Cast. Can't believe I'm doing this. Oh God. Anyway, no, Aubrey Plaza. Aubrey Plaza. So, she's a really, really quirky, super quirky young comedian who was brilliant, and she was just messing with me all day. We decided to do this in Staten Island Ferry. She was messing with me all day, not uncooperative and not mean, but just making me really work hard. And I said this in an Instagram post the other day, and it's true. I was getting so frustrated that I wasn't getting good images that I just went over to her. I said, Miss Plaza, Aubrey, I'm trying really hard, and my cat died this morning, and I'm not quite 100% on my game. Could you just work with me for a couple of minutes to get the image, and then we'll do whatever you like. And she looked at me and said, "You serious?" I said, "Yeah." So I stepped back and she gave me these like 4 or 5 great frames there, and I just went, "I don't have a cat," and the rest of the shoot went really, because and it's something you've learned. If somebody's messing with you, you gotta mess back. I didn't have experience. I mean, I found a way around it, but I didn't have the experience to deal with her. So
yeah.
So that's good. And this was a shot to go back to what I was saying. This was a shot that I just passed by. I never saw it. Was never published, and I just saw what I think I saw in it, or what I hope I saw in the last few years. I've really been trying to, with the Pacino shot, to do something with this, with the eye contact, to really make it seem like the people are looking through your camera, through the camera at you, not at the lens, and just maybe exposing a little bit of something that they wouldn't normally give. And I know she's doing it. I hope it comes off in the photograph, because I know what happened in the 30 seconds before the photograph, or the minute. So sometimes when the photo gods are on your side, it all comes out right. The worst is when you have this, you can see what's happened because you know what's happened, but the photograph doesn't tell the story. That's when that's when I'm really deflated.
So tell me a little bit. I love hearing these stories, and just looking. I mean, even as you're just scrolling through, it's so entertaining just to look at all of these images. And I know we're gonna, just for those of you who are on, just to give you a little insight, we are going to watch him do some lighting here in just a minute. But can you talk a little bit about your lighting? And you talked a little bit about pre-visualization and planning for your sessions. But what's your preference? What's your lighting preference?
This has come from a couple of different places. When I started off, one of the kind of places I started off shooting a lot for the Source magazine, which was a hip hop magazine, or the hip hop magazine at the time, and I knew nothing. I think why we were a good match is because I was a boy from Scotland. I didn't know anything about hip hop. I mean, I really like hip hop. Puffy, yeah, I know who, but I didn't have any understanding of the culture, or where it came from, or who was in it, or why it was what it was. But what I did kind of learn pretty quickly is that these hip hop artists were not. I mean, let's be honest. Quite often in the early days, they would be like 7 hours late. You smoke a joint, and then you'd fall asleep under the table. So your time to shoot was really, really reduced. And then when people would put music on, it was super, super loud. And if they were moving seriously fast. So my whole style was F22, as much light as I can humanly get. Let me see if I think I would have to go back further to my film archive to find any of this. I'm talking about. But anyway, so that was very much my style. F22, as much light as humanly possible, just to get it sharp.
Yeah.
And then, I segued a little bit into portraiture, and I actually, I was, a couple of things happened at the same time. I switched camera to Leica, and I was playing around with the Leica, and I was taking some photos, and all of a sudden, I was f2, and I think I took a photo of my wife or somebody, and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I'm really liking the difference between this, as much sharp as possible to this super narrow depth of field. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try this on a shoot, and I used strobe, and I couldn't get the light down enough, and it just didn't look like I wanted it to look when I just taken the snap in daylight. So did some research, what else is out there, and it was kind of there's a company called Rotolite, and in all honesty, I'm a Rotolite ambassador. But I'm going to say this in all honesty, they're wonderful, but there's many options of LED lights out there for all budgets. But I was at, I think, one at the show in New York, and I met the guys from Rotolite, and I thought, wow, this could solve some of these problems with being able to get the light, low enough and the power low enough to get this really narrow depth of field that I was looking for. And that's where that started. And then strobe just went away completely for me. Sometimes if it's a big set or a big thing that you need a ton of light, then, we'll definitely still go to strobe. But I find being able to see what I'm shooting through the camera, also, not having, I mean, I know we talked about this a bit earlier, but not having to, not that your subject doesn't know you're shooting all the time. If I have my camera and I'm shooting strobe, it's ding, flash, 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 flash. If I'm just shooting without strobe, I can be pressing the button. The Leica is super, super quiet, and people don't know they're being photographed at that moment. And I find it, for me, as the type of portraits I'm trying to do, the off moment or the exact moment is easier to capture if it's not a strobe popping. Because sometimes I'm looking for, sometimes I'll say something like, what's the one thing you'll never tell your significant other about? I'm not expecting an answer to that question, even though I've got a couple that have been really good. But what I am looking for is maybe the 2 seconds of their face when they actually think about that. Do you know what I mean? And if I've
Yeah,
got a strobe going
absolutely.
off, the strobe goes off, then it's going to knock them out of that place. So it's being able to keep conversations going, keep thoughts going, keep dialogue going without strobes that is changed the way I shot, and I'm super happy, super happy
Yeah.
with it.
I think that's what we see so much in your images is that nuance of emotion,
Right.
that flitter, that thing that flitters across a person's face that is often so elusive.
Right, and it's missed a lot with strobe, because the strobe goes off. Number one, I don't care how fast you are, there's recycling time, right? So you maybe have
Mm,
another part of a second before you can shoot again. Whereas, I mean, I don't shoot a lot of pictures, but I maybe shoot 2 or 3 very quickly, because what's happening is in 1 second, and I want to capture that. So yeah, I mean, let's find an example. I mean, there's great examples.
I was gonna say all of them. They all have, so much emotion or so much of what's going on, what's going on with them. Very
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to find one that I can really talk about with
sure.
some some degree of honesty. Uh, you know, Rappaport there is actually very amused by what I'm saying, and that's as much as he gave. But that hint and the glint of humor, and I mean, this is what
Mm.
I see. I don't know how much I just pretend it's there because I really want it to be there, or how much it actually is there. But I see it, and I just see, he did go into a smile there, and his lips did go up, but it was just the thought of him I'm gonna smile. I mean, I caught that before I knew he was gonna smile, I think. So, you know, stuff like that I find very, very difficult to do with strobe. There's another, I mean, there's some really obvious ones, but I'm trying to look for the more subtle ones. Oh, good. Another favorite trick of mine, and you should all do this immediately, is try and capture people when they're yawning. I do a lot of yawning photos. Absolute yawn. Yawns are really good.
I
A
love it.
couple of famous yawns. One's Mike Tyson, but I don't think he's in here. But I think there's another yawn in here. Oh yeah, Bill Murray is a yawn. Let's find
Yeah,
it.
we were seeing that one earlier.
Yeah, where is he? Bill, where are you?
We know it's in there. I know I saw it earlier.
Yeah, no, I want to find it. Okay, I'm going to give up the ghost on this one. Bill was so upset that he left the image folder. But anyway, you kind of know what you know what I'm. Oh, here he is.
There it is.
Yeah, but here's another example. Clinton. That's a real that's a real expression from Clinton. That's not like I'm posing for a cam. Once again, I think and I hope that's not once again I'm posing for a camera. That is the conversation that I've had with this president, ex-president, is has created the situation that that has made him do that in a reaction to me. So you know, it's like you know, when people say, "Oh, a portrait should says more about the photographer than it does about the subject," is complete crap. But what I would like to do is to provoke or to encourage them to be themselves in a way that they may have not given to the camera before. That sounds really kind of highfalutin, but I hope I mean it's just what I try and do.
Yeah,
And
so tell me more about that. What does that mean for you? Is that
oh
in
man,
the
I just made it
conversation?
up. I'm now gonna have to think about what I'm talking about. What does that mean for me? It means, well, it means what it genuinely means what I've said. It's about, you know, you've got, let's say that you got a short time, like with um, Mr. President Clinton here, and you had about 8 minutes, right? So
Mhm.
it's like, actually, it's not a great example because I have met him before. Let's see, there's a shot of Martin's. Oh, please can I find it? Oh, I might be able to search for it. Scorsese.
Mm.
Yeah, no. There's a shot of Martin Scorsese. God, I wanted to kind of have all these images to show to everyone, but I'm not as organized uh, as I would like to be. I think he's towards
That's
the
very
bottom.
encouraging to hear too. I think some of us feel like that. Some of us, you know, are not as organized as we hope we are either.
Well, you know, I make a very, very, very big effort to be, you know, to have my stuff cataloged as well as I can and to be able to find stuff. And that's super, super important. Backup is so important.
Yeah,
Backup, backup,
yeah.
backup, backup. But anyway, so yeah, so I could tell you about this. Like with Martin Scorsese, you know, a phone call. You want to? We would like you to shoot Martin Scorsese. I think it was for Deadline. I was like, oh great. And the photo director says to me, you know, Marty's only going to give you 5 minutes, right? You can have 5 minutes. I was like, okay. So get to the hotel, and you know his rep or publicist or somebody meets us, or his publicist's assistant says, you know, you guys have got half an hour to set up, and you know Marty's only going to give you 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I got it. And then his publicist, you know, Marty's only going to give you 5. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I got. Here, makeup people, you know, I actually knew one of the makeup person. So it's a small world. And she goes, you got to be careful with him. He's only going to give you 5 minutes. I'm like, I got it. I got it. So Scorsese comes in and he sits down, and you know, through this great miracle of photo gods all coming into place, and some setup. He sat down, we were tethered. For some magical reason, the light was not perfect, because it's never perfect, but it was pretty good. The exposure was kind of right where I wanted it to be, and his expression was really, really great, and the angle was right. It was just like the first frame was like, wow, I could stop now. It never happens very much, but anyway, I took about another 15 or 20 frames, and he was just, it was, the photo gods came together, and I was just very happy with the photo, and I decided to do a ballsy move. And I put my camera on my lap. I said, Mr. Scorsese, everybody says that, you're only giving me 5 minutes. I've had two. Can I spend the other three talking about your movies? And he roared with laughter. He said, oh, that's the best line I've ever heard. And yeah, you take as long as you want. You take as long as you want.
That
I
is
spoke for
great.
a couple of minutes and literally left the door at 5. But I got some shots that were way beyond what I would have captured. I thought it was a ballsy move.
That is fantastic. I love that.
You
Yes,
could
and you're just providing them the unexpected, especially for those, those celebrities who are used to, they're used to having this done, being
yeah,
photographed and being in
that's why you gotta start off you gotta try and start off in a different place. And we're all humans. We all do things. They have kids. They eat, they go to the bathroom, so do I, they like, so as soon as you start, I mean, with Scorsese, it's different because it was a funny remark, but as soon as you start with, oh, it's so great to meet you, Mr. So-and-so, I loved you, and they just blown it. They just go blah, blah, blah. They love to hear it, don't get me wrong, but you're not
sure.
going to, yeah, But, you turn around to someone and say, did you have breakfast in the hotel this morning? The eggs were great, right? And I go, yeah, the eggs are really good. And all of a sudden, you're like somewhere, you're elevating yourself and you're bringing them to meet you. And then all of a sudden, you're just two people having a conversation. And
Yeah.
if you can do that and do it quickly, I'm going to use a great line here. That's when the magic happens. But seriously, that's when I think that couple of minutes, and then some people realize and they go back to being, Brad Pitt again. But if you try hard, you can get that couple of minutes where it's just two people having a conversation, and that's when
That's
the good.
fantastic. I love listening to your stories. I do want to go back to something that you were talking about on the technical side of things. You were talking
Mm-hmm.
about backups, and I know from our past conversations just how much you value having systems and processes in place.
My
And
God.
I know a couple years ago, I do want to, because you're very involved with Dell, talk about your
Well,
switch from Mac to Dell and what
yeah,
that workflow looks like.
yeah. Well, I, I'm doing a cover shoot for CNET magazine, and the editor in chief of CNET, of CNET Creative. I'm not sure what her job is now, but she was a creative director. She's editor in chief of the magazine CNET, and she's been in tech for 30 years, and she is amazing, and I love her. And I'm sitting there, and I'm in at that time I had like a 3-year-old, MacBook Pro, 17-inch one that they just stopped making, so everything went down to 15. And I'm bitching to her, and I'm going, man, I got to buy a new MacBook. This one's slowing down. And you know what really pisses me off about this? I've got my Leica camera here. It's not USB-C, so I'm gonna have this spend $6 grand on a computer with my camera, and I'm gonna have to make them talk to each other with a Chinese dongle for $30. And that just is really annoying me. And I want ports and I want this, and I don't understand. And she just looks at me and she smiles. She goes, get a PC. I was like, you're crazy, never. Ran around the room. But anyway, she wrote a couple of emails in front of me. One was, dear Michael, to Michael Dell. I'm sitting with my cover photographer, and he's thinking about going to the dark side or something amusing like that. And she also wrote to her friend at Apple, and said, hey, I'm with Mark Mann, and he's thinking about he has to buy a new computer. What would you recommend for what he's doing? And Dell got back to her very quickly. Michael Dell wrote a very lovely email I was CC'd on, and they set me up with a guy who phoned me and said, what are you doing? What are you using it for? What's it all about? And we talked through everything. He's like, and they sent me a Dell to try, and it was which is in front of me actually, so it's getting a little old now, but it was 17-inch workstation with ports, everything, like 3 USB ports, 2 USB-C ports, HDMI port, mini DV port, Ethernet port, which was exciting for me to start with. I didn't need a dock.
Right.
And then, you know, I open up this Windows computer and I'm like, oh, I have no idea. I follow through the instructions. I install Photoshop. I install Lightroom. I install Bridge, which are primarily what I do. I mean, I have some other apps and stuff, but, you know, I'm like, oh, Photoshop works really nicely on this. Wow, this is fast. This is so much faster. You know, Lightroom works really, really nicely with this. Mail and internet, Google's Google, right? So, you know, definitely a transition for the first couple of months with keyboard shortcuts and whatnot. You know, oh, this does this and this does that. And, you know, very quickly, I just came to realize that I can get better speed, faster speeds. And I personal once again here, for me, I think that Photoshop, I'm not really technical, but I think something to do with Photoshop using GPU as well as CPU and Lightroom using there's something going on that made everything faster and smoother. And I thought, why am I messing around? Why am I going to spend like twice the amount of money on a 15-inch MacBook Pro when I can get something like this? So that's where it started. And I think as I've got, and at that time, you know, people were just crying out for, it was the time, you know, the trash can had come out, and then people were like, how do you expand it? You can't expand it. And I was never going to buy that. I'm not going to spend 12 grand on a computer I can't expand or whatever it was. You know, I needed more RAM. I can, you know, I think maybe RAM you could, but you want to change the disk. It's expandable, it's customizable, and I just found for me as a creative, Dell were catering towards me more than Apple were. Now, listen, I know Apple's come out with their cheese grater or whatever it is, and the 16-inch laptop, or the, you know, and I know they're now have, I think, turned a corner to get back to trying to cater to the creatives. But you know, you go to a convention or anywhere where they're doing what's it called, AV, RV, UV, when they do with the goggles, AR.
Oh, AR. Mm-hmm.
Nobody is running anything on a Mac. All this incredible experimental stuff that's going on, and nobody's using a Mac. And I said to a lot of the creators, why is nobody using a Mac? And they said because it doesn't. We can't get the power. We can't get it to do what we need to do. So I'm trying to get my picture off my picture in picture. There we go. So it was a super easy switch. It was an easy decision. I was incredibly fortunate that I had some great tech help from Dell. That not everybody, I don't think everybody would be able to get that to my level, but in the grand scheme of things, if you have a problem with a PC and you search Google, you're going to get all the answers because there's just much more out there. And I've loved it, and I'm just like, I could never ever see myself going back to Mac.
Oh,
And I'm not even, I mean, my iPhone, yeah, and Dell, you know, from a support level. I mean, the first couple of times I I had problems with my Dell. I mean, there was it wasn't problems with the Dell, it was like problems with me not knowing what to do. I went through, I went through the regular support lines because I didn't know that I got some special person to talk to, and everything got fixed. Everything was fine. And then I did have a hardware issue about 4 months or 6 months into my first computer. One of the fans was not working properly, and I got a warning saying, "Hey, your computer's getting hot," or something like that. And I just went and phoned Dell. I had a warranty. A guy physically came to my office the next day with a part, and this is the regular warranty for that computer. A guy came to my office the next day with a part, switched out the parts, now it's good to go.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And the other thing, I know this is weird, but right, if Macs are so easy, why is the Genius Bar so busy? 4 days to get an appointment at a Genius Bar to get my wife's phone fixed. I mean,
well, we might be digressing here. We
no, okay,
won't beat up on Apple too much, but
no,
but I do want to.
But just to finish that off, and in all honesty, my mom is in the Apple ecosystem. She has her iPad, she has her phone, and she has her little laptop. I would never in a million years try to change that for her. I mean,
right,
what she
yeah.
does is genius. It's perfect. It works. She knows how to work it. She can do everything. But for me, people who are creating that need power, and they need faster processors, and they maybe need to change their video card, or they need to do anything else, then Dell has been a phenomenal partner.
Yeah, they're fantastic. We appreciate them so much. They've brought us some fantastic education, and they've been great partners for us as well. I do want to move into one of the other things we talked about having you share with us, is some of your lighting, and talking about yes, doing a lighting demonstration and how you do that. I would also love to throw this out real quick too for those of you who are live right now. If you have any questions, go down to the questions box, especially as he's doing these demos. We'd love to hear if there's something that you want to see or any questions you have. All right, Mark, I'm turning it over to you.
Let me just switch over to this kind of setup. This is another great product that I've been working with, is Blackmagic. I've been doing a lot of stuff with Blackmagic, and they let me use this little switcher box, which can let me do camera and switch stuff, and it's super easy to use. And the testament to that is we do. This is my setup today for fun.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Yes. Is that the is it called Atem? ATEM?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just heard about this.
It's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, listen, as I say, it's not like I don't know anything about setting stuff up, but this was literally plug and play. And as I say, it allows me to, switch through settings of pictures in picture, have my little graphic up. It's a Blackmagic Atem Mini, and I think it's a couple of $100. And for all the stuff I've been doing over the last few months where I haven't been out and about, it's been really, really great. So what I wanted to do today, and forgive me if it's not that smooth because I don't have anybody helping me, which means I'm useless. But what I wanted to, I'm going to move my microphone a little bit, so excuse some past clicking or anything. Can I move my microphone? Okay, I'll move it over here. There we go. So what I wanted to do, and I can't see you anymore, so hopefully you can see me.
That's okay. Yeah, we see your desktop and your picture in a picture. Yes.
Yeah.
So, sort of. Yeah, if you stand there, we can.
What I wanted to, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yep.
Do I have to shout any louder?
No, you're fine.
Okay. So listen, I know everybody's at different levels of photography. And I imagine this will be mute to some of you, but I hope some of you might take something from this. one of the things I do very often is kind of work out new lighting for stuff and how I want to light stuff. And one of the ways I do it is I'll take a form, and it's not always a face. Sometimes it's a face if I can get somebody to sit for me. But I like this girl quite a lot. Her name to me is Collapsible because that's what it says. And what I like to do is kind of just start somewhere to see, you know, how the light is hitting. So let's say we're pretty much straight ahead there. Let's just see what happens. This picture should come up for you guys. If
Yes,
not,
it did.
come up. Yeah.
Yes.
So you know, I work in this with black and white, and oh, maybe if I stand here, you can see me. I work
There
with
you
it
go.
in black and white, and I have the contrast up pretty high, and quite a lot of clarity because I really want to see what how the light's working on the form when it hits it. So you know, if you start there, which is pretty much, you know, straight in front, you can see the fall off towards the edges of the form. You can see how dark it's getting, and as the shoulders of the form go back. And then literally, I'll just move it somewhere a little bit different. Let's see what that does. And then you can see we're beginning to actually bring some shape to it. And what I'm looking at here is how this is working with this. So when I do have someone sitting down in front of me, when I set up a light, I know what it's going to do if I go there.
Right.
And then even if I, you know, it's kind of a bit weird to demo for me because I've done this a billion times. I'm kind of showing mistakes rather than, you know, what it should be like. But then, you know, I like to swing lights more than reposition them. So, you know, let's start here. So this is kind of go-to for me. It's not quite far enough in, but let's bring it back a bit. So this is kind of super go-to for me. And as you can see, I'm beginning to get some real lovely shadows. Now, I've got a lot of high contrast on here, so I know I have details in these shadows, but I'm not looking for minutia. I'm looking for the overall pattern. And then if I just start swinging a little bit, maybe a little deep, I can start to really begin to work out what's happening with the light. And the more different objects you do this with, you really start to get an understanding of how light is falling and what it does when it hits, you know, different subjects. So I've got two of these up. If I turn on the other one, you can start
And
playing
are
with them.
those lights, are those the roto lights?
Yeah, they're little mini roll lights. They usually use bigger ones on set, but these are great for just practicing. So now
How
if I,
large? What are the
sorry,
size of the ones what are the size of the ones that you typically use on set?
they're about 3 times that size. They're like a 12-inch round, if that makes
Okay.
any.
Hmm.
So I can spend many happy hours just doing what I'm doing right now. I'm literally just watching where the light hits and what it does when it hits. Like, so to me, this is getting interesting now with two of them, where the light coming over that right shoulder or left shoulder is really nice. And I see how that highlight is playing out on that. And then, you know, and then the other thing I'll do very often is if I'm really working on one, I'll turn the other one away so I can totally see what this light is doing independently of the other. And even if you're doing strobe, this is a really good exercise because start with one and then build to two, but always check what one is doing. So you have an idea of how they're working independently. So I kind of like that shoulder there. And I think we do something a little flatter on the front.
So Mark, we had a question come in that I wonder if you could just address. And
Sure.
I don't have this person's name, I apologize. It says lighting can be overwhelming when you're just starting out and not sure where to start. This is where I am. I bought a lighting kit and I don't like it, lesson learned. It did make me realize how difficult choosing lighting sources can be. Can you give me some advice to beginners that may guide us down the right path in choosing?
Sure. It's actually quite an easy question. Well, I mean, it's easy for me. I'm not being a dick. It's not as crazy complicated as you think. Um, so once again, I think the person said they bought a lighting kit, right? I accept that you bought a lighting kit. Probably came with 3 lights, flash, LED, doesn't matter. Put away 2 of them. Forget the other 2. Start with 1. Something that I did before I did that kind of little exercise I showed you before is, you know, in the hardware store, you could get these silver, just like very inexpensive silver reflectors, and there was you just put a light bulb in it, and it was just a wire, and it was for like construction areas. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So one of them is like a $4 investment or something like that. And what a wonderful, wonderful way to learn is to go into a bathroom, turn the light off, plug the thing in, and start holding it in front of your face from all different angles. Hold it here. What does it do? And the reason this, I think, is a great exercise because you know your face better than anyone else knows your face, right? So you can see, like, you put the light here, what's it gonna do? What's it gonna do here? Do I look good like this? Does it accentuate my nose if I put it here? If I put it straight up front, are my eyes popping more? So a really, really, really good exercise is to do that with. I mean, listen, if you don't want to go buy one, buy a flashlight, do the same thing. But this thing actually gives you, you know, a better kind of idea of what maybe the light source from your kit's going to do. Then when you're kind of feeling that you kind of know where this light should be when you're trying to, what you're trying to achieve, if you're just trying to achieve something super simple, you know, 40, oh, here's a good rule, 45, 45. So 45 degrees up, 45 degrees from the side. That's a great place to start.
Start there. And it sounds like start there and play, that you really spend some
Yeah,
time.
it's practice. And then if you've got somebody who's like, you know, if I ask somebody to sit, if I ask somebody in my family to sit for a portrait, um, like there's scurry like rats out the room. It's like, no. So, but if you can actually find somebody to sit for you, it doesn't matter who they are, somebody that you're just comfortable to let them sit and chat for 10 minutes. Just put the light on a stand, move it around, take 100, take 1,000 pictures of the light in different places with one. And then when you start getting to where you're like, oh, kind of, this looks all right. Why do you need a second one? What is the second light going to do? Oh, well, I need a little more light here. Oh, a little less. Oh, I want to light the background. Then start to bring in the second light and the third light and the fourth light. And then when you get a massive advertising job, you need 40 lights and you set them all up and you only use 2, but you want all your clients to think they're paying for something. So you have the other 38, you know, sitting around the I mean, if I use more than 2 lights, it's unusual. I use 1 very, very often and sometimes 2. But I do use reflectors. But I like one source. I mean,
Yeah.
a
Well, you
lot of my
told me a story once about, I asked you how much gear you take to a session, and you told me a story about that.
yeah, so about mm, about 5 years ago, um, I switched office. I moved into, I got an offer of a lovely, I don't often like to shoot in my office. I mean, studios are much better. I don't want to have a studio. It's too much overhead. And everybody like, Mark, can I shoot in your studio? I'm like, no, you can't. So I don't want a studio, but I do like to have a place where I can keep my stuff and my computers and get home at night. So some friends of mine offered me a wonderful, great space that I could have a desk or a few desks in Canal Street about 5 years ago. And the only hiccup was it was a 5-floor walk up. And I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to get exercise. I'm going to walk up and walk up. Not really thinking like, after I'd been there a week, I got this job and I'm having to bring bags of equipment down, this and this and this. And my assistant and I did like 2 trips up, 2 trips down. And this went on for a couple of months. And then one day I just said, I'm not doing that anymore. And Alex, my assistant, said, what was it, Alex? What was? Alex said, what we taking, boss? And I'm like, just one road light in the camera? He says, you want a tripod? No. No. And I went out on a shoot with one light. And I thought, oh, I like this. It came from a place of sheer laziness, but it works for me. I use a ring light a lot. The other light I use a lot is a ring light. I love what you can do with a ring light. I love how it feels. I would say, if you want to try, if anyone wants to try working with a light, ring light is I mean, it's not very inexpensive, but compared to pro gear, I mean, I go through ring lights, a lot of them, because I break. I'm not super careful with my equipment, but like a couple of $100 investment. And this is all, this is ring light. Let's see what else we got. That's ring light.
Hey, Mark, you're not sharing your
Oh,
screen right now.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, so just ignore that example of ring light. Let me find another example. Let's go for Eddie Van Halen. So, this is ring light. I love what it does. Let me find one that I like better than that. Okay, here's a good one. This is Bradley Cooper. I think this is one light, folks. I mean, it's not, how many lights do you need? One. Once again, if you're doing something for a client and the client is kind of requesting, can you still see me?
Well, I can't see you, but I can see your screen.
That's what we need then.
Yeah, just the picture in a picture.
So yeah, so start simple. Start super simple. Start with one light. Have an idea of what you want to do. How do I want this to look? The young lady that asked the question, she said that she wasn't happy with it, but was she unhappy with it because it didn't fulfill her expectation, or did she buy something that she didn't know what it did, or does she just have to practice with it to make it do what she wants it to do?
Yeah, those are great questions and good things to consider as you're making those decisions.
Right.
I have to say that you inspired someone else's funny to come out. Audrey said, "When I grow up, I want to photograph Mark Mann, but I might need to practice on Mike Mann first."
I'd love to meet him and go, hey, anybody call you Mark? Mike, anybody mistake you with me?
Just wondering. Thank you, Audrey, for that.
I remember once being photographing some stuff at the Cannes Film Festival, and we wanted to get into this club, and I was with a friend of mine who's a real chancer, and we get up to we ignore the line, we walk up to the front, and he says, you stand there, and he goes up and he speaks to him, and he waves me over, and we both walk into this bar. So who did you tell him? What did you do? He says, I told him you were Michael Mann, but I said it really fast, so if they check, it was them that misheard it. Yeah, that is Mike Mann.
Fantastic.
Mike Mann, the photographer.
That's wonderful. I know that we're a little bit over on time.
We
I
are.
love hearing your stories, but but it's okay. So I'm just curious of our audience, and our audience is still here with us. Do you guys have any questions for Mark?
Sleeping.
They are not sleeping. They are very entertained.
Yeah, the light has changed a bit on the webcam. What's really nice about this A10 Mini, because the light has changed, I can actually go into my camera setting here and just bring down the exposure a little bit and fix my light from my
Oh,
computer.
nice.
So,
Oh, I need that.
so
So
it's kind of nice.
Audrey wants to know, we've got a couple questions coming in.
Sure.
Who would you like to photograph that you haven't photographed yet?
Oh man, so many of them are dead. Like number one, Elvis, man. I'd love to photograph Elvis if anybody can make that happen. Um, living, ooh, so many. I thought somebody the other day, because I get asked this question a lot and I think about it a lot. Um, who was it the other day that I thought I haven't photographed that I really wanted to photograph? I've never photographed Johnny Depp. This is my go-to answer. I've never photographed Johnny Depp and I'd love to because I just love him.
Yeah,
Um,
he's pretty remarkable.
yeah.
He seems like he would be fun to photograph too.
I think so. He doesn't do a lot of photography.
No?
You know, I was once when I was doing a lot of music stuff back in the day, my absolute hero was David Bowie, still is. And I was up for I was in the selection process down to the last 4 or 5 people to shoot one of his album covers. I never got it, but that would have been cool. That would have been really cool. Good.
Yeah.
The cover was crap. I would have done much better, but
That's got to be
no,
so hard.
it's actually not true. I looked at the cover like, God, I could never have done that.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, no, there's people all the time. It's not, here's the thing. It's not, yeah, you want to photograph people because they're known and you admire them, and the celebrity leads to more work and recognition. But honestly, I'm at a place now where I just love photographing faces. I see something so interesting in any face, and
Mm,
I've almost it's weird. I don't see conventional beauty anymore. I just see these little differences and things. And if I can get my camera, that's my family hate it, but because they know what I'm doing. But if I can get somebody to sit, I really, if I didn't have to pursue the celebrity and stuff for career and buying food and that kind of thing, um,
just food.
I just wouldn't care who they are. I mean, listen, it's really interesting to have a conversation with somebody who's well known, but you know what? Yeah, everybody has something going on that's interesting, and it's up to you as a photographer, or up to me as a photographer. You guys can do whatever you want, but it's up to me as a photographer to try and find that thing that we're both excited about for a minute, or both interests us. And whether that person's, a sitting president or a guy that the mechanic that kind of fixes my car. And my practice, another thing that I do for practice for that, we haven't really touched on that, is every interaction with another human being I have, I try to think, I want to photograph here. I've got a couple of minutes to talk to this person. Let's see what I can make happen. You know,
Yeah.
it's very annoying for as I say, my wife despises it because she thinks I'm always on, but it's just I can't help it, and it's really helped me to find these little seconds with these people or anyone I photograph that makes a difference.
Well, and having that really authentic connection in that moment,
Yeah.
and being willing and open to seeing that. We have a couple, everyone loves you. I just have to say, just people said that they will gladly sit for hours, days just to watch you work. Thank you, Mark. You were so fun.
Yeah,
Um,
but I'm gonna leave this meeting and go like, look at me
I know
here.
you had a long day yesterday and a late day last night, or night last night. But we do have a couple of questions about
Sure.
lenses. And
Yes.
Jason wants to know, do you tend to prefer a 50 or a 75? And if a 75, why not 85?
Huh. Um, I can be very, very, very honest with the answer to this question. I own 70. I did buy some more lenses purely for video, but for my photography, I own two, two lenses. One is three lenses. One is on this Leica SL right now, which is a 24-90. And I love the versatility of it. I love being able to zoom in and zoom out. It's kind of a new thing for me. And everyone goes, oh, but the 24th, you need a prime. A third of us, I don't care. Um, the other lens, which is my go-to, which is my Stradivarius of lenses, is the for the Leica medium format system, is the 120 macro, which to me is beyond it's the perfect portrait lens, and I absolutely adore that lens. And that's what most of, like, this where is he, like, this was shot on that. Uh, that shot on that shot on it, that shot on it, that shot on it, that shot on it. That isn't, that is. So this is my absolute perfect go-to portrait lens. And I love it. I love the depth of field fall off. I love how close I can stand, so I don't have to shout when I'm talking to my subject. And then when I got the SL system, I bought the 70 fixed f2. God, might be 1.8. I don't know. I don't care. I bought that, and that for the 35 mil kind of does something a little similar to the 120. And that these are the three lenses that I use.
That's really, really fantastic.
Not
It's
not
fun. I know it's fun for people to hear and to be able to see. So I love looking through these. We are getting a couple more questions in. This one is also a lens question. Um, for a family portrait, so more than one person outdoors, what lens would you choose?
well, I don't. I I was gonna say I don't like wide angle lenses. That's a lie. If you know how to use a wide angle lens, 28, 35, which I don't and can't and fail miserably at, if you can work out how to make that look good, then I would go something like that. But if it was me personally, I would have nothing wide. So if you're shooting 35, then a 50 and step back a bit, and not be close. That's just me. But that is so out my wheelhouse. I mean, you know,
Mm, yeah.
but for me, I've never been able to take good wide angle photos. So, um, and if there's more than one person, I start panicking. So, um, way out my wheelhouse. But I mean, I suppose the other thing is the reason I have so few lenses is because I'm so comfortable with these lenses. So maybe the answer is whatever you're more comfortable with. Don't get hung up on lenses and gear. Just make photos. It's a practice, you know. It's like I do it myself with stuff. I was like, oh, forget that. I'll maybe be a better photographer. No, you won't. The way to become a better photographer is to take pictures. And it's something I'm guilty of not doing as well. When I'm in a rut, it's like, oh, I'm in a rut, everything looks the same. It's like, well, Mark, you haven't taken any photos for 2 months. So what do you expect? That was my inner
Yeah,
dialogue as my outer dialogue. Do you see that?
I did. I saw that.
So
There's
yeah,
a couple more.
I wish I could help more, but I'm not keen on white lenses, but mostly because I don't know how to use them.
Well, I think it's just really interesting to hear just the way you think about this stuff. I feel like everybody thinks there's a magic answer or there's
There's
one right answer. And
um,
so I appreciate your honesty.
there's no secret sauce to anything. It's just it's practice. It's like everything else. I photographed Joshua Bell, the violinist, is definitely top 5 of anybody's lists of violinists in the world. And we got there and we had about an hour to set up. And he said, "I'm just going to go practice." And I said, "You still have to practice." He goes, "Hours every day." It's like
Wow.
you
Yeah.
can't be you can't be a good photographer if you don't practice. If I practiced more, I would be better. If I did that exercise that I showed you guys a few minutes ago every day, I would be better. You know, it's just practice. It's practice, practice, practice.
On that line, there's a question here of who were your mentors, other photographers or artists in general?
Really, 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 really interesting. I've been thinking a lot more about that recently because of people have been asking, because for some bizarre reason, people want me to talk about things. But I can't look at I can't look at my contemporaries because I just look at what they're doing and think, oh my God, that's what I should be doing. And then, you know, it messes my head and I have to rethink everything. So I'm not, I don't feel I'm influenced by my contemporaries because I'm scared to look at what they're doing. But I think, you know, I had a couple of fantastic teachers in college, um, but mostly where if I'm looking for inspiration, I look at the old masters, I'll look at Rembrandt, I'll look at Delacroix, I'll look at um, the old masters and try and see. Let me try find an example. Should have had this folder better organized.
It's
I got.
fun for us to just get to see as you're going through. It's fun to.
Here's a good one. It's like, you know, I'm trying to think how, you know, if you know, if I'm not comparing myself to Rembrandt, please, but you know, how did Rembrandt, who was mostly working with one light source, I mean the sun, whether it was coming through a window or whether it was like a candelabra, but he, you know, he usually had one light source. What does that light source do? So, you know, that's why I think I'm very much influenced by people that only had one, you know, some of the painters that usually only had one light source.
Yeah,
So,
that's beautiful.
so, you know, with this is a real cheat, but this to me is like trying to really emulate a Rembrandt painting, failing somewhat, but was the idea. But I have cheated because you can see there's 2 reflections in the eyes. There are sometimes women photographing women, and unfortunately, we're not the equality of photographing men and women has not quite come together, and I will use maybe a softer light or add in another light so that the shadows are not so harsh, because that's just the way what people want. So this is a great example of that, you know. And if you look at like some of the great Dutch masters, how their backgrounds go out of focus and how there's just hints of light on the background. So I get a lot of inspiration from that.
So before we let you go, Mark, I really would love to talk
Where
about
am
your
I going?
book.
Where am I
What's that?
going? Where am I going?
I thought you had to take a nap.
No, I'd like to keep it for another 3 hours because as soon as I leave this room, my sister will be on basketball or baseball.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I'm
Well, can
just
we
gonna,
can we talk about your book coming out?
yeah.
That's
So I'm working
exciting.
on, yeah, it's I'm working on titles. Well, first of all, working on imagery. So far, I think I have 400 to 500 portraits that are potentials that maybe in the book. There's maybe 7 or 8 shots that um, I love with a passion. A couple of hundred that I think I did all right, and maybe like 100 that are people that are well known, so they should probably be in there. But I'm starting to work with an editor who is brutal, and I love it. I don't have an ego with this stuff, so I'm quite like, can't use that one. Okay, so working on that, and then as I said earlier, is I think that the hook is going to be going back and looking at shots that I were never used or seen before. Like everything I've shown you guys today is a real sneak peek of that, because although you might have seen a similar shot, you haven't seen this shot. The actual shots I'm showing you. So that's a good look.
Yeah.
That's when I asked him if he wanted a cracker. Are you hungry? I have some crackers. Just looked at me. And then I don't know where that came from, but he doesn't. Yeah. So that's what the book's about. We have a few publishers interested. Um, I would highly recommend waiting maybe 9 months, and then you can buy it in the bargain bin at Barnes and Noble for $1. That's my biggest nightmare. It's like, why have you never
It's
done a
not
book? I
happening.
do not want to go into Barnes and Noble and see it in the bargain bin for $1.
When is it being released, Mark?
Nothing is set in stone.
Okay.
Still working on it. I would very much like to get everything finished by the end of the year. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to get shut down a little bit for the winter, and then I really get a chance to focus. And I was really doing well with it at the beginning of the COVID thing, but thankfully, last couple of months there's been some stuff going on, and I've been busy with other stuff. So hopefully, I can get everything done by the end of the year.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait. This is much anticipated. We're very excited about that. Mark, thank you so very much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure to get a chance to chat with you and just to get to know you a little bit. I know it's great for our audience. Everyone, all of the comments we've been getting have been just appreciating your humor and your stories and your humility and your obvious kindness and love of this craft. So thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
so
you.
much for having me. It's always such an honor. Um, you know, it's always such an honor to be asked to talk about your work, and I just hope I never take that for granted. It's always such an honor. I'm genuinely humbled by it that anybody wants to hear about it. As I said earlier, because it's just about, well, what's next, and how am I going to feed my kid, next? How are we going to pay for this? And what's been really nice for me is doing some of these things and looking back over the imagery and going, "Yeah, actually, that one wasn't too bad, So I'm always super humbled and super humbled and an honor to do this. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're looking forward to future conversations with you.
I hope so.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And Mark, thank you again. We look forward to next time. Thank
Okay, guys.
you.
Thank you so much.